We were looking around being like, what is going on in the world, especially the medical industry? Why are so many doctors and medical organizations and pharmaceutical companies going along with this idea that people can be born in the wrong bodies and then cutting them up or medicating them in order to indulge that lie? What happened? Well, for more on that, I want to bring in Kate Anderson. She's a culture reporter for the Daily Caller News Foundation with an important new report. Kate, good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Hi, Vince. It's really good to be on today, and thanks so much for having me on.
Of course. All right. So the headline on your piece today is exclusive. Top doctors complain detransitioners posed harm to trans members at medical conference. Let's just go over the basics of what these terms mean. What are detransitioners, and why would doctors freak out about them being at a conference?
Yeah, well, it's incredibly ironic, the headline in itself. And so a detransitioner would be somebody who, they've gone through some part of the medical process to transition or to attempt to transition from a male to a female or vice versa. For instance, one of the individuals mentioned in these emails is Chloe Cole. I believe she's 19, and she started medically transitioning at 13 with puberty blockers and eventually a mastectomy in order to appear as male. And so, but she has since detransitioned, meaning that she has reverted back to her biological sex, and that is how she's living her life now. And so these doctors, in these public record request emails that we got, are complaining about that, and they're saying they feel threatened or they feel unsafe being in the same room as someone like Chloe Cole or Prisha Mosley, which is an incredible statement to make, considering they're the ones pushing these kinds of treatments and policies.
What conference of doctors are we talking about?
Yeah, so this was at the American Academy of Pediatrics conference. They hold one every year. They're holding one, I believe, in Florida this year, and last year it was in October. And so these doctors attended this conference, and Chloe Cole and Prisha Mosley and several others were with FAIR, the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism in Medicine, and that group opposes the medical transition of children. They're very active against that, and so they invited Chloe Cole and Prisha to be at this booth and to talk to people, to talk to the doctors who are going to be making these policies and pushing these kinds of treatments, to give them an idea of what it looks like on the other side.
Yes.
So that's kind of where this took place.
Right. So they come and if this was a scientific enterprise or an organization dedicated to science, they'd be open to all sorts of people and opinions and details to help make wise decisions. But in this case, they were not open to someone who said, I regret, having the medical industry cut me up, and in fact, I prefer the body that I was born in. Why are they so threatened by that person?
That's a good question. I wish the AAP would have responded to my request to them for comment so we could get some idea about that. But I think Chloe Cole, who I spoke with about this, actually gave a good response to this. She said that it's deeply concerning that these individuals who would be the ones to provide this treatment to young kids. I mean, she was 13 when she started going through transition. And she talks about how, you read these emails and you kind of have to laugh. They're almost humorous and how ridiculous it is. But it is concerning. And she said, there should be nothing scary about a detransitioner. And she talks about how it is actually scary that these people don't listen to someone like her.
And I've interviewed Chloe Cole a number of times, including in person. She is one of the smallest human beings I've ever met. I mean, she's like a tiny little, she's non-threatening, in other words. So the idea that she would, quote, make attendees feel unsafe is truly one of the most preposterous possible claims that anybody could utter.
Well, and I think it's also important to note that the AAP is being sued over this kind of thing. They're being sued by a detransitioner because of their policy that claims that things like puberty blockers are reversible, which we know they're not. Puberty blockers, if they're given to a young enough child, like 11, 12, which is not uncommon as as the media likes to claim, when they're given that, they are often infertile for the rest of their life. That's not reversible. And so these kids don't know that. An 11-year-old doesn't care about fertility. They don't even know what that means. And so I think, to answer your earlier question, I think that's probably part of why the AAP doesn't want someone like Chloe Cole or Prisha Mosley or FAIR being at an event like this, because it exposes it for what it truly is and the harm that it can do to these kids.
Yes. Now, meanwhile, there's also a lot of money in this industry that's dedicated
Mm-hmm.
to these practices, right? I mean, cutting up kids, putting
Yeah.
them on puberty blockers, having them be dependent on the medical industry for the rest of their lives, starting with an elective procedure and then leading, of course, to numerous required procedures in order to maintain that. That's a big cash cow, and you have to believe the American Academy of Pediatrics has decided rather than follow the science here, they're going to follow the money.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a question that has to be raised, and it's not just the AAP. It's profitable for many groups. Like Megan Brock and I, who worked with me on this report, we also did a report on Planned Parenthood, and they give out these puberty blockers to children, they give them out to, I think it's anywhere from 16 through adults, and there's a lot of money to be made in this industry, like you said. And so I do think that's a pull. They don't want to. One of the individuals in these emails works with a pharmaceutical company, and so it's embedded. But it's unfortunate that a young woman like Chloe, who, like you said, is very non-threatening. She's very small, she's young, and she's been through this. She can't have a voice because they don't want to lose dollars, or they don't want to hurt their reputation when it's harmed her life. It's not reversible in many ways.
Yeah, and she's worried about what the future holds for her. She said that a whole
Yeah.
bunch of times. So finally, do you get the sense at all that the dam will be breaking on any of this? Because occasionally you hear from pediatricians who are members of the American Academy of Pediatrics who are horrified by what's going on here. I know there have been efforts in the past to get the American Academy of Pediatrics back into normal land, trying to correct them and to get away from all this radicalism. What are the chances that that happens?
Vince, I believe in being an optimistic realist. So I think it's going to take time. And it's taken a long time to get to this point. And I think in some ways it'll probably get worse before it gets better. But I think you're right. I do think doctors are seeing this. And now we have these stories. I think that's why these stories are so crucial, and why it's crucial for someone who is a detransitioner to be able to be at these conferences. Because before, there's no long-term studies on these things. But now we have kids, young people, who have gone through it and who have been harmed, and they can show doctors what that does to them. And I think that's going to have a huge impact. So I do think that there are going to be doctors,
Yes.
more and more, coming out saying this is dangerous and it's wrong.
Right. But Kate, as I think you've actually reported on, even the surveys on these questions are corrupted, because when they try and do surveys on satisfaction with these so-called gender transition surgeries, they literally exclude the people who are like Chloe Cole from the data. It's people who say, I regret mine. Well, you're not included in the survey data. Well, then how can it be an accurate survey?
Well, it can't. And I think you're referencing the report that came out not too long ago that claims that it was an astronomical number, something like 90,000 people, or transgender individuals in America, had more life satisfaction because they transitioned. And then there was a subset of them that had hormones. They got like puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones. And again, it was an astronomically high number of them. I want to say it was like 85% of them said, I am so much more satisfied by this. But like what you said, they didn't include any detransitioners. So that's like saying, everyone's happy at the gym, but you're not including the people who left, in the first couple months, when New Year's Eve resolutions happen and then they're uncomfortable in the gym and they leave. That's like it's not including everyone. And so it's very skewed. The data is incredibly skewed.
Yeah, and it's distorted to serve a purpose. Thank you very much for staying on top of the facts here. Kate Anderson with the Daily Caller News Foundation. Really appreciate this, and please keep us posted if you get any updates from these guys.